All right. Well, we got here part two of the tour, the great tour. This here is the left wall, is what we're going to be looking at today. So, carrying on from Huxley, we have the first volume here, Ape in Essence. Very weird, strange book, basically about World War III. And Hollywood. It takes on, I guess, the aspect of a Hollywood film script. It's very weird and interesting and such. I read that many years ago. A few more Huxleys there. Anticate, I Must Have a Stop, After Many a Summer, and Nihilus and Gaza. And short stories and essays, as well as The Devils of Loudun, which was probably the find of the year from whenever I found it. Right next to Aldous Huxley is Elspeth Huxley. I'm not sure if they're related or not, but I think they may be in some degree. I don't know, but just books about Africa over there. And we got some books by Heisman or Weisman, however you say him, Against Nature and The Damned. I'm very much looking forward to reading those. Peer Gynt is probably my favorite play. That's by Ibsen. I read that recently and absolutely loved it. Uh, these four great plays by Ibsen are nothing like Peer Gynt. Peer Gynt, I think, is more of a fantasy, whereas the plays in there, A Doll's House among them, are more realist. And I read A Doll's House for school. Let me just zoom in here so you can actually see everything. I read A Doll's House for school many years ago, and I remember nothing about it. So that just goes to show you that perhaps Ibsen should have stuck to fantasy when he was writing his plays. Random book of short stories, and then some Washington Irving. A couple more things there, and I mentioned this book, Lions and Shadows, in one video a long time ago, and that I said I was going to very much enjoy reading it. I've not read it yet. I'm hoping to get around to it here soon. Shirley Jackson, have some of her short stories and her novel, The Haunting a Hill House. I'm not as crazy about Haunting a Hill House as many people are. I found it to be kind of predictable in some areas and a bit confusing. Maybe that's just me, I have no idea, but it is way better than the abysmal adaptation done for Netflix that they did of it however many years ago. Moving on, we have one of my favorite writers, Henry James. I have a whole slew of Henry James books, as you can see there. I've not read all of these, but ones that are notable are obviously Daisy Miller, Washington Square. The Europeans I really did like quite a bit, and then obviously more of his short stories and such. I go to Henry James for his, more naturalistic type of stories as opposed to his horror. I'm still yet to read Turn of the Screw, and from what I hear, Turn of the Screw is actually one of the stories that he himself did not care that much for. And someone on here, I forget his name, I think the name of his channel was Big Strong Book, had said that basically he had hated that piece for the reason being that it just was lacking depth and any reason behind it. Uh, just a few random things there. Three Men in a Boat, which Logan Albright loves, and I've not read yet, so hopefully here I'll read it here soon. I don't know. Biography on Dickens. James Joyce stuff. I don't like James Joyce all that much, but I do enjoy some stuff in Dubliners. I'm yet to read Portrait of the Artist, Ulysses, or Finnegan's Wake. But if Dan Schneider, not that Dan Schneider, is correct, it goes from okay to bad to abysmal. So we'll see. Got some Kafka there. I am a big fan of Kafka. I've not read Kafka in many years, though. But I need to get the Muir translation of the Metamorphosis at some point, which I do not have, so we'll be seeing it there here soon. A few random books, and then also The Story of My Life by Helen Keller. That is actually a book that I had borrowed from not my art history teacher, but my newspaper teacher. He said I could read it, and I read most of it and just never gave it back. So, Mr. Miller, if you are wondering as to the whereabouts of your copy of Story of My Life, as well as your copy of Citizen Kane, they're over here. And if you'd like to come and reclaim them, by all means. Another book on watch repair, Imitation of Christ, 2 copies of that. Still need to read it. And then after a few random volumes, we get my Stephen King collection, which the only book that I've read by Stephen King I don't even have with me, which is Revival. And I did a review of that. You can go and watch that if you like. But, from what I gather, he seems to be someone that I'm going to like. And, he's someone that a little Kabbalah uplifts. So that's good. We got some Rudyard Kipling. I love Kipling. I read a lot of him when I was in high school, though not for high school. But I haven't read him since. In fact, I'm still yet to read the Jungle Books. But he was a big inspiration on me, but for all the wrong reasons. I kind of did a whole slew of stories in which the Empire took back the colonies, and it was primarily inspired by his whole sentiment, which is weird. This book here, The Idiot's Guide to Quitting Smoking. I don't smoke. But my former doctor actually wrote this book, so I have it for that reason, and he signed it to me. So I'm not sure what this is. The Marquis of O and Other Stories by Cleese. I don't know exactly who that is. I think I bought it just because it's a Penguin classic. And I like Penguin classics. All right, so up here we have 2 Funko Pops. We have right there Sam Neill and/or Alan Grant that was gifted to me by $10 Slimer. Missing is Raptor Claw for some reason, and but he's still there. And then we have one of 3, or I don't know how many of my musical heroes, Frank Zappa. I have a loose one of him, which is just up there, and I have a carded one, and as you know, he's the one after whom I modeled my facial hair, and that's all I have to say about that. Okay, next shelf here we have a copy of Phantoms by Dean Koontz. That $10 Slimer gave me. I had a copy of Dragon Tears, but I decided, one Koontz book is enough to try to see if I like him or not. And, I could just use that space for another book if I wanted to. A couple more random things. The Quran, the Juice Man's Guide, or Juice Man's Power of Juice. I don't know why I have this. to be completely honest with you. I thought it was a classic at some point, but I don't know. Maybe I'll get to using it. Who knows? I don't know. We'll see. Nobody's Ever Missing by Catherine Lacey. Horrible book. Absolutely horrible. I still have it because it's a very rare book to find, and I may actually do a review of it, so I may need to reread it, and after I do that, I'll get rid of it. Couple different books there, random books. Mark of Cain by Andrew Lang, who's more well known for his fairy stories, but that's a novel, which would be interesting to read. This book here, Knots by R.D. Lang. The reason why I have this, that's a very interesting reason. It's because this is the basis for a song from one of my favorite groups of all time, Gentle Giant. In fact, I'd say the Gentle Giant is probably the most impressive group I have ever heard. And the structure of the poem, it's poetry, but the structure of the poems, when you read them, you almost hear the song in your head alongside it, which is interesting. I'm actually very thrilled that I found that, so yeah. Couple Nella Larson, I've not read her. D.H. Lawrence, once again, I've not read him, though he's got this book, A Boy in the Bush, which takes place in Australia. There's another one of his called Kangaroo, which I'm looking to get at some point, but only in a Penguin. Oliver Lafarge's Laughing Boy, which was a book that the late, great Reamsey had read, and I was looking forward to, but I never got around to it at some point. I never got around to it. I did get it, but hopefully here soon it will be one of my next reads. I don't know exactly. Phantom, R11 books, and C.S. Lewis. I got rid of all my Narnia books because I thought I could get the big edition with all of them in there for cheap. I saw it at a friend's at the library and figured, I could get rid of all those vintage paperbacks and, consolidate the space. But when I went to go back and get it, because I attended this particular friends at the library, I'm just going to get myself some water right here. When I attended this particular friends at the library, it wasn't very often that I went. It had gone. So I haven't had Narnia in here for about, 3 or 4 years. But anyway, I like C.S. Lewis. I read A Grief Observed during the time that I lost my father. It helped me very much. This book here, Michael Caine's Deadly Game, that's like a thriller that he wrote. I read it. No, I didn't read it. No, I didn't read this book, but there's him on the back there. I saw it at a little free library, and I figured, hey, Michael Caine wrote a novel. That's interesting. Maybe I ought to read it. And I decided to take it home with me. And it's been with me for about half a year. Not read it yet. So if any of you know anything about that, do let me know. Well, The Monk. Oh, actually, before I talk about The Monk, we have a shot glass there, New Zealand shot glass, and some mints. C.S. Lewis's Space series. I read the first volume. It was quite good. So I may need to go back, revisit at some point. We have The Monk by Matthew Lewis. Right there, you can probably see. I've not read that, but that's said to be one of the best of the Gothic genre. So I'm very much looking forward to it at some point. And it's right next to The Evolution Man by Roy Lewis, which is a bizarre book, to say the least. I don't recommend it. Sinclair Lewis. And then we have probably one of the most disappointing books in my library, and right next to this fish. The Apes of God by Wyndham Lewis. I bought this. No, I didn't buy it. It was sitting in the back room of the school library, and you know that I get first dibs on any volume that comes into the system before it's processed and accepted. And so I grabbed it, thinking that, and I read the preface, and it said it had to do with apes and such, and you know, it had a reference to Arthur Conan Doyle's Lost World, and I said, okay, this is going to be awesome. When I looked further into the book, it turned out it was just like an indictment of the art world, and I said, oh, are you serious? How disappointing. Very disappointing indeed. So I haven't read it yet, but I'm keeping it because it's rare and, you know, it's from that time in my life, so it has sentimental value to me. A couple of random books. The Magic Pudding by Norman Lindsay, which is a Australian children's book. How Green Was My Valley, which is, I don't know if you can see by the light. It's right there. And then we have all of Joseph Logsdon's books. Yes, my writer friend Logsdon. Right there, we have Dark Tales of Mystery and Crime, The Rains of Godwin Valley, which I've read most of. I haven't read all of it quite yet. Empty Sounds of the Wind, The Symphony of Perdition, Mournful Wanderer, Silent Reckoning, and then his most recent one, The Ecstasy and the Ignominy. He says ignominy, but it's actually pronounced ignominy. You sound it out. Ignominy. And because ignominious. Anyway, I was reading a little bit of it. I got about 60 pages in there, and his writing, you know, by most standards, it's very dense, but I can get through it okay. But one of the characters in there, Desmond Archer, I believe it was, for some reason, well, this book takes place in the 19th century, but for some reason, he uses profanity like no one's business, and it threw me off because, yes, I know that people used profanity back then. In fact, they probably even used it more than we do now. But you don't put that in books. It just seems weird to me. I mean, this isn't a personal jab. It's just, I mean, this isn't a jab against Mr. Logsdon. It's just my problem. That's all I say. I mean, if you're Chuck Palahniuk, then yes, that's fine. But, you know, if you've established a tone and a time, you may as well stick to it, because anything else, if you insert profanity, it would seem like an anachronism, almost. Because unless you read some very salacious literature of the day, you won't really see any words that are really that bad apart from hell or damn or ass. And really, ass was not used in that context. It was used more to say that, oh, what a silly ass you are, or something like that. That's my one gripe with the book so far. Other than that, it's pretty good. So, yeah. And then next to Logsdon, we have Jack London, who is become one of my favorite writers of the past year or so. Before Adam is about some cavemen. Or no, it's actually about a man who dreams that he's a hominid, and how basically in the modern day he's affected by it, which is very interesting. Martin Eden, probably my favorite out of the lot. Martin Eden is about a sailor who wants to go up in the ranks of society and decides to do so by becoming a writer. Scarlet Plague is, you know, about an illness that wipes out most of the world, and there's only a few survivors left. Abysmal Brute's a boxing story, so he has a tremendous range. And I almost consider him the American Conan Doyle, because he's not just known for, you know, wolves and cold weather. he's known for lots of things, so there's that. And on top of that is a anthology, The Best American Non-Required Reading from 2004. The reason I got this is because it's introduction by Viggo Mortensen. Not Morgenstern, Mortensen. And my brother wanted to read it. And so whatever books that I think he would like, he doesn't take. He just tells me to keep them. And eventually he'll check them out of my library, which is interesting. He hasn't yet, but, you know, that's just one of the things we do. And those are just some random little toys that I got from claw machines because, well, I'll get into that later. This here is the complete fiction of H.P. Lovecraft. This is the only edition of the Barnes & Noble leather-bound classics that I kept. At the time, I was in a situation to where I was very strapped for money and needed it quickly, so I sold off basically all of my editions except for this one. This is the only one that I really cared about because, you know, Lovecraft is the love of my life. And that's my only complete edition of his fiction. So that's the only one I decided to keep. Obviously, I haven't read everything that's in there. I've read a lot of it, though, and from what I've read, it's very good. A few more things there. George MacDonald and some Arthur Machen. Very good. And once again, a few more random books. This here is the King Kong Production Diaries, which I have out of its case because I watch it all the time. And, you know, I haven't watched it recently, and that's a book on London. This here is a little Toad minifigure who's in a little capsule that you get at the Mexican markets. I haven't opened him yet for some reason, whatever the case. Yeah. This book here, Jono, by David Malouf, I read early on and I loved it. I may need to reread it again and do a review on it because it's actually quite a neat book from what I remember correctly. Old New Zealand by, I think his name is Frederick Manning, but it says a Pakeha Maori. Is basically, well, about old New Zealand. So this particular copy costs $6. You know, turtle bound type of thing. But so elsewhere it would cost anywhere like, I don't know, anywhere between 60 and 80, which is absurd. I don't understand why. Which is anyway. Catherine Mansfield, her stuff's very hard to find, but I found that one. This is my reduced Karl Marx collection. It used to be way bigger than this, because I used to be, I called the character in my novel a muddled Marxist. I used to be just that because I was obsessed with George Orwell's Animal Farm, and you know, just wanted to read as much of Marx as I could. All I have really now is the Communist Manifesto, the 150th anniversary edition, and just some selected writings of Marx. That's it. You know, Workers of the World Unite, that sort of thing. But anyway, I'm not a Marxist. Just, you know, there for library. The Four Feathers by A.E.W. Mason is a book that was made into a movie by Marion C. Cooper before King Kong, and that's why I have 2 copies of it. I read some of it a long time ago. I forget a lot of it. I may need to go back. But anyway, there's that. This here is my fountain pen from, I forget the name of the company, but this is a fountain pen that my cousin Rory, who runs a channel, several channels, he got this for me, as well as his wife Violet. They acquired this for me because of one Christmas, because he said, well, a writer must have a pen. And I do use this pen though not really to write with. I use it more for notation because, it's permanent ink. And, well, let's just say my process doesn't end up being very permanent until the very end because, I tinker quite a bit. So, but I do use it on occasion. Richard Matheson, not read him yet. I'm sure he's fine, Richard Matheson, but I have Hell House, I Am Legend, and What Dreams May Come. So, right here we have, probably one of my most divisive writers that I have in my collection, William Somerset Maugham. I just had a talk the other day with a lady at a friend's at the library about Maugham and how she was looking to get into reading some of his stuff. And I said, well, I love Maugham's novels, particularly The Booted Sixpence, The Pain of Veal, and Mrs. Craddock. Those are the ones I've read. I also read Liza of Lambeth, though I don't have that. And Of Human Bondage looks interesting, so I may get into that here soon. But his short stories, which I read a lot of, I found were just rife with cliches. I don't understand why that is. Maybe he was on a deadline. Maybe he just, saved his artistic genius for his longer fiction. I've no idea. But nevertheless, it's just a very strange disparity I've noticed. This here writer's notebook by him is fairly interesting. Has little bits of wisdom and travel writing. It's basically kind of like a journal that he's kept. It's quite interesting reading. So, yeah. Moving down the next shelf. I'm starting to feel just a little bit better from talking. But up here we have just some spare copies of things. We have another Martin Eden, just for general reading. We have Frog Music by Emma Donoghue, which I got at a rummage sale, which I think I'll read. But once again, another weird book that takes place during the olden times, but there's profanity in it. I don't understand it. I don't know what the hell's going on. And there's Dragon Tears. I'm going to probably get rid of that at some point. Next here we have just a few random things. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, which I need to read desperately. I've not read that at all. I do need to rectify that at some point. We have Spaceman, Jiminy Cricket, the Sea Lion, which I won in a claw machine because someone told me a secret method how to do it, but I'm not going to tell you because then, well, I don't want to spoil the fun. Anyway, this is part of a set that I bought. The first 10 penguins. This is Ariel by Andre Marois. Just a biography on like Percy Bysshe Shelley, I think. And this is actually supposedly the first penguin that was ever printed. This is just a facsimile of that they did back in the 90s or something. I don't remember exactly when they did it, but, I bought it for the wrong reasons, and I'll get into that. But they look nice on the shelf. Let's just say that. And then some random books, and then we got Herman Melville, and I forget what kind of stone that monkey's made out of, but it's a monkey. It's Herman Melville, Moby Dick, and Ahab said to read Moby Dick. I will at some point, but, times are limited. Anyway, Quiet Neighbors by Katrina McPherson. This is the third of the three writers whom I had luncheon with at that one get-together. A mystery writer from Scotland who actually lives in Glen Ellen, I think, up in California. I actually read 80 pages of this because, it was vaguely interesting. Kind of like, it's very modern, but it was still very good. I just haven't referred back to it since then. So that's actually that's the only of the books I've actually made an effort to read. So I may need to go back and read the rest. Mencius, which is one of the Confucian philosophers. Uh, I almost thought about responding to Ahab. He said something or other about Tim Winton's In the Winter Dark, and then it sounds like us, and then he quoted Confucius, or he put Confucius at the end of it. I thought of almost saying, indeed it is, and then put Mencius at the end of that, but I never did. I don't understand why I didn't, but whatever. And then a little angry bird and my reading glasses. These are just some notepads that I use for various things. Note taking, drafting, whatever. This here is a star necklace because I'm a star, and various other things. That's a box for headphones, troll doll, caveman troll doll, because that completely reflects my personality. I'm a dinosaur. Only 3 Winnie the Pooh books. I don't understand why. They're kind of hard to find. So I'm trying to look down. I'm not trying to track the others down. I just haven't yet. And then a couple other books by Milne, Once on a Time, which is like an adult fantasy, though not that adult. And The Red House Mystery, which I'm still yet to read. Just a little mason jar. I don't know why I have that. And a couple other things, Gone with the Wind, some Nancy Mitford, Paradise Lost, Montaigne, The Hermitage Within by a Monk. That's one of the books that Johnny Keane read back in, I don't know how long ago. And I thought I'd get it to see what it's about. Haven't read it yet, so we'll see. Anne of Green Gables. I've read some of it. I like it so far. I took some of that inspiration and put it into one of the chapters of my book. I'll get into that another time. But, there's that. Few things there. News from Nowhere, Utopia, some Jim Morrison poetry, and then not all of them, but a lot of the Rumpole books by John Mortimer and some other novels by him. I've not read any of these. I don't even know if I'm even going to keep them all because, they are penguins. Obviously, I am. Oh, I am a loyal member of the Order of Gwyn. I will be until the day I cease to exist. But they take up space, and I probably haven't read them. I'll probably keep these 2, or at least this one, The Best of Rumpole, and then just get rid of the rest because, I really have no purpose for them. I picked up one of them. I forget which one. Actually, I think it was that one, Trials of Rumpole, in Arizona with my uncle and aunt, who were the writers, Ernest Hogan and Davenport, because it looked interesting, and just have not read it and continued to pick them up since. But anyway, is that a few random books, Iris Murdoch, more notepads. Oh, and those are some pens up there. I use erasable pens. I have quit using pencils and have not used a pencil really in about a year. I'll get more into that here in another video probably. Here's that McNugget buddy that I alluded to Ahab about. This was just on a table at a McDonald's, and I was watching it very keenly because the people had left it out lying there, and I figured it was probably a game of pass it on or something like that. And so I took it, and this is the first one I ever had. This is her name's Darla, and actually looks a bit like Paul McCartney, doesn't it? Anyway, so there's that. Iris Murdoch, not read her yet. Nabokov, read a little of Lolita. Funny story about that. During my last year of high school, in my sign language class, there was I say lady, a young girl there who was very keen to read Lolita, and she saw that I was reading it, and she was very, very, very unaware of the content in it. She said, "Oh, it's Lolita. You gotta tell me all about it once you're finished." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I suppose I will." Lolita is a comedy. I know the subject matter makes it seem as though it's not such, but it is. I've not read all of it, but I may need to go back into it. My Naipaul, I'm thinking of getting rid of these Naipauls because I may keep Ben in the River because Penguin, but I haven't read them, and I don't really see a need to. This here's just some information of a tour that I was going to give, but never ended up having done so. That's just some extra copies of things: Hard Darkness, Call of the Wild, and Color of Magic. That's a book I need to return, actually. So anyway, a bunch of random stuff, including The Normal Christian Life by Watchman Nee, which is supposedly one of the best, who's supposedly one of the best Christian writers of the 19th century. So we'll see what that's about. This up here, the Milagro Beanfield War, John Nichols. John Nichols is probably one of the most depressing writers I've ever encountered. Not because I've read anything, but because, I tell you, this man, he's dead now, but this man had accrued a room about as big as this with his manuscripts, his moldering manuscripts of about 100 novels that he wrote and never published. And he was just, I don't know how else to explain it. He's a very compulsive reviser. He says that, draft after draft after draft. I can't think of doing more than one. He's definitely very demoralizing a figure, I must say. So, if anything, I got this book as just a curiosity, just to see if really he's as good as his lack of confidence protests. I don't know. We'll see. Who knows? This biography of Conan Doyle I've not read yet. I got that. I don't remember where I got that, but I don't know. Maybe it's good. McTeague by Frank Norris is supposedly Conan Doyle's favorite novel of the year 1899. That and some other book called The Light, which is about reincarnation. I forget who the author of that was, probably Bernard something. But if any of you know about The Light by Bernard whoever, and know where to get it, because I haven't been able to track that one down, because apparently it's unavailable. But if any of you know where I can find it, do let me know. I always look up the word egregious, probably the best reference book ever. This will replace your thesaurus and dictionary, all of that. If you're a writer, get it. You won't regret it at all. You'll love it. We got some Twizzlers up there. I hate Twizzlers, but I prefer Red Vines, but Mother got those for me for Christmas. I still haven't eaten them. Turtlebound and Merchant of Venice, and I dropped something right quick. A little portrait of Jesus, a boulder with Tonka on it, and then some luggage tags marked in New Zealand, which I will no doubt be affixing to my luggage on my flight out to Wellington come the end of this year. Bunch of stuff, and then we get to Orwell, George Orwell, and we have the essential Orwell right there, which includes Animal Farm, 1984, Down and Out, and Shooting an Elephant. And then we have several other Orwells. I'll get into why it is I bought the first 10 Penguin set. All because of this volume right here. This vintage Penguin of Animal Farm. Look how beautiful it is. That's the only reason I bought it, because it was included in a lot with that and I think War of the Worlds. And, you know, that's just how crazy I am. And also I have a French copy of Animal Farm right there because, I tried to read it in French. I was taking French at the time, but then I found out that French was not for me and I didn't end up getting on with the teacher. So there's that. A couple other things, some comic book guide. I don't know why I have that, just for reference, really. And then a couple Chuck Palahniuk's Fight Club, which I've not read. Survivor, I have read. Ahab actually got me this book. I liked it quite a bit. Hopefully I'll read Fight Club here soon. I used to have a lot more of Palahniuk, but I got rid of those because of space constraints, and I figured, well, I could probably put more books in the place of those. We got Zoo by James Patterson. I've not read this, but the reason why I actually bought this new when it came out around the time of the television series, because it sounded a lot like Animal Farm. These animals take over the world, basically. And it was actually not until recently that I saw the series. I saw with my mother before, around, I don't know, March or so of 2021. I saw the first two series of the series, which sounds very confusing. And it was actually quite good, to be honest with you. The third one sort of went off into a strange direction with the whole sterility virus and the animals sort of morphing into weird hybrids. It got kind of stupid after that, so we stopped watching it. But nevertheless, I still need to read the book. Ahab says that, of the James Patterson he's read, Zoo he hated the least. So I don't know, maybe there's something there. Right next to that, we have a much better book by somebody named Patterson, The Man-Eaters of Tsavo, by J.H. Patterson, which is the basis for the film The Ghost in the Darkness, and is a very good book. A few other things, Bell Jar, which I still need to read, Plato's Republic. I reference Plato's Allegory of the Cave in my book quite extensively. I like Plato quite a bit. So that's why I have some of his. This is my Edgar Allan Poe edition. It used to be a big, you saw my big Barnes & Noble falling apart copy. I don't need to explain it, but this is my current edition, and I really don't like it. It's from the Modern Library. It's nice and small. It's portable. It's a hardback, but the only thing about it, the stories are out of order. And it just doesn't suit me as an archivist, it throws you the hell off. And that's mainly what I am. I'm a book collector. I'm obviously a book reader and a book writer, but I'm also an archivist. I'd like to have the most definitive copy of anything, which is why I got the Lovecraft volume there. But this was just, I got this for $1, so, that's why I have it there. So, anyway, that's enough of that. And I don't like Poe very much. A couple tales, like Manuscript Found in a Bottle and Loss of Breath, I think are brilliant. Loss of Breath, I tell you, that tale is bloody hilarious. I could not stop laughing after that. But the rest of his stuff is kind of impenetrable, I must say. Sorry to say, Joseph Logsdon, but, I don't really like Poe. I'm more a Lovecraft fan than I am a Poe. I respect Poe for all he's done to the genre. In fact, we wouldn't have Conan Doyle without Poe, but nevertheless, to go back and read his stuff is just excruciating. We got Kabluna by Gontran de Pensées, which is an incredible book about a French explorer going up to Alaska. No, not Alaska, up to Canada um, to spend some time with the Eskimos. Very exciting adventure book. True Grit, Charles Portis. I've not read. I'm hoping to read at some point. That's an anthology that my uncle's published in. Couple Peter Rabbit books by Beatrix Potter, which I was read as a child in the bath, and they probably look as though they've been read in the bath. I mean, they're falling apart. They're all taped up. The spine of one is gone. But, sentimental value. We have most of the Dance to the Music of Time by Anthony Powell. Not all of it, but I just saw these at the Bargain Book World. They were $1 each, and I figured, why not? I don't have this series. I may as well get these anyway, just so I can, start it. And yeah. And also got Venusberg by him, which I have not read, but it's an interesting little penguin there. And that random book. Oh, what the hell is that random book? Exploration of the Colorado River and Canyon. Okay. Moving on down. Actually, before I do that, this up here is a binder, like a little binder of paper from my uncle. Not the one who's living with us, not the writer, but an uncle of mine who passed away about 2 years ago, who had a turn for religion, but took a little too frequently to drink. This is a little journal of his. It's about 50 years old. The leather on that is about ready to crack, but it's a little interesting thing. I'll probably use it for note taking. Down here we have, that's a bag of chips that I'm in the middle of eating. My Proust collection is very lacking indeed. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and arrange the chair so I can more easily show this to you. All right, not the most comfortable position, but it'll work. My Proust collection is very lacking because, well, the volumes are very hard to find and, very expensive. But I do have Swan's Way and Within a Budding Grove, so there you go. Godfather, Robin Hood. This book here, The Book People and Other Tales by Anna Questerly. I was in a bookshop in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, and I saw this because if you look carefully, I can't really pull it out because there's so many goddamn books. You can see it's a very similar design to most self-published, or at least public domain books that are put out through Amazon. It's got the bar at the center of it and such, very nondescript looking spine and all that. So I figured it was a lost author from the 19th or 20th century that I would be keen to discover. When it turns out that the author of this book actually was the cashier, and so I had it autographed by her and such, and actually got to meet a very nice lady. And some of the stories in there are also very good. So The Book People and Other Tales by Anna Questerly, I recommend that. Right here is some Matchbox, or not Matchbox, I forget. I had the box someplace, but we just some little Jurassic vehicles. The helicopter, the Jeep, and Ford Explorer right over there. They're in the order of as they appear in the film, which is neat. And my brother got those for me for Christmas one year. We have Ayn Rand. I've read Anthem many years ago, and I liked it, though not for the reasons you may think. I still need to read The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged and We the Living, though. So we'll see. A couple different things there. All Quiet on the Western Front, Club Dumas, which I still need to read because Ahab read it. This actually took me a long time to track down because I was looking for about 6 months to find that volume, and it ended up finally being at a Friends of the Library um, north of me, and I ended up getting it. I still have not read it. Hopefully, one of these days, I will read it. So, and next to that is a copy of Violin by Anne Rice. I do not have any of her Vampire Chronicles. I just don't have the space for it. One of these days I may track it down. I don't know. We'll see. But Violin sounds interesting. It was one of the favorites of Gear of the 1000 Books. So we'll have to see what that's all about. Ancient Secrets of a Master Healer by Clint G. Rogers. That's by a healer that my mother follows. Really good book. I read that, I think, in about 2 days, and we went to go see him just before Uncle took ill and ended up living with us. So I'm not going to say too much more, but very interesting book. Poltergeist, that's another one of those books that my brother wanted me to keep for him, so it's there. Above that, that's a bullet journal as well as a quotation dictionary and a spelling dictionary. The quotation dictionary I used to read out of in the newscasts that were conveyed over through Snapchat when I was a newspaperman, which is interesting. And then that's just another notebook for other stuff. Let's see, a bunch of random stuff. Varney the Vampire, which I still haven't read. Sorry, Ahab. I just have not got around to it. It's just so big, so long, and I've not had the time to do so. I'm sure it's a penny dreadful, so it could either be brilliant or it could be absolute rubbish. I have no idea, but it will be interesting to see just how it is. So, one day. We have, just a spare copy of Erewhon and of The Lost World and other stories. We have here the complete works of Saki, or H.H. Munro, who was one of my favorite writers back in high school. I used to read a lot of him. Edwardian short story writer and satirist. Very good. I recommend a lot of his tales. He's most well known for The Interlopers, the one about, well, you know what it's about. But he's got a lot of good stories in there. These two books are a kid's book and Scenes from a City. These are by Dan Schneider, not that Dan Schneider, but Dan Schneider that owns or that's founded Cosmoetica. I bought these originally to figure out just what makes great literature. I now know, so these are irrelevant. In fact, I've pretty much dismissed much of Schneider's teachings and really just stick to my own because I know what goes into constructing great literature, and I don't need anyone to tell me, you know. So there's that. Few things. This very dodgy looking Shakespeare volume, it's falling to bits, and it's not in the greatest of shape. But the reason I have it is because this is the one that my father gave me when he had got home from work one day, when he knew I was expanding the library and wanted to do whatever he could to support my cause. He was like that. He would, whatever I intended to do, he would back me 100%. He was a wonderful, charitable man. It's a shame he's gone. But he got me this Shakespeare volume. And I used to have like a giant green leather Shakespeare which was maybe twice as big as Varney here. It would not have fit on the shelf. I could tell you that much. In fact, all these shelves I had to build, I had to build based on the height of Varney because it's the tallest book I have. It would not have fit there. But, this right here, that's good enough for me. And it's my father's copy. So, he's still with us right there. And okay, so these next few books are all by George Bernard Shaw, and I really hope that Joseph Logson does not think me a socialist or a eugenicist or whatever these things that Shaw supposedly was. I just think the man's fascinating and is a great writer. That's all. But I have a lot of his plays. I've read some of his plays. I love a lot of his plays. And The Black Girl in Search of God, which is right over there. In fact, maybe zoom in a little bit. Yeah, which is right over there. But these books here, his novels, Rational Knot, Unsocial Socialist, Cashel Byron's Profession, and Love Among the Artists. This one's Immaturity. Interesting because I had no idea he had written novels. So I'll be looking into those here soon. We'll see. Next to Shaw, I have Shelley's Frankenstein. I have 2 copies of this. I have the standard text and the 1818 text. I still need to finish Frankenstein. I've read most of it. I liked it for what it is. In fact, I must say that in reading Frankenstein, I could say that, I have written sentences that are that are similar to at least a third of the sentences in that book. It's uncanny just how similar Shelley and my styles are. It's absurd. I don't understand it. I really don't. But anyway, so we'll have to see more about that. And of course, I have The Last Man right there. The Dracula book of great horror stories is interesting. It includes a lot of older tales that are necessarily not that easy to find. Like you can see back there, it's got Charles Dickens, Edgar Allan Poe, Lord Lytton, Maupassant, H.G. Wells, Jerome K. Jerome, W. Jacobs, E.F. Benson, William Hope Hodgson, Bram Stoker. Lots of people that, it's an interesting collection, I must say. So if you can get your hands on that, that'd be interesting. We have The Tale of Genji. This is not the translation I wanted, but I've been looking for this book pretty much since I started collecting books, and I found it for cheap at a friend's library, so I sprung on it. I still want to get the Penguin, because as I said, remember, loyal member of the Order of Gwyn. So that's going to be, I don't know. I may get rid of it. I don't know. We'll see. And that's a copy of Hamlet up there from the Pelican Shakespeare. Neville Shute. I have a bunch of Neville Shute. He's a novelist with an aviation background whom is very interesting. He's most known for On the Beach. I haven't read any of these yet. I look very much forward to it, but we'll be seeing here soon. Different things there, Wealth of Nations, Upton Sinclair books. We have this book. Al Smith writes a stupid book to cash in on what little YouTube fame he has by, of course, the late Al Smith. Rest in peace. I haven't read any of this yet. I may do it at some point, but I don't know. We'll see. Apparently he was, as the $10 slammer people say, a guy. So, and we'll be seeing just what that's about here soon. The Locked Box, that's another YouTuber book. Tree Grows in Brooklyn and Clark Ashton Smith. Different things, book on clock repair, more professional stuff. C.P. Snow, who Johnny Keane adulated, but I've not read yet. Solzhenitsyn, and I think that's the last notable title on that shelf. We're almost done here, folks. We're almost done. Oh, okay. Let me turn this chair back around. All right. So we got some Cheez-Its, which I'm going to eat here soon, on top of the greatest series ever made. Those of you who have seen it know exactly what I'm talking about. High quality television at its finest, I must say. Then we got some Steinbeck. I'm looking for To a God Unknown, but I haven't been able to find it yet. But I do have a lot of his other titles. I don't have The Pearl. No, I do have The Pearl. Oh, interesting. I thought I got rid of that for, well, personal reasons. But anyway, a bunch of Steinbeck and some other nondescript stuff. Not really much to say. Robert Louis Stevenson, who is a great source for vocabulary. That's one thing about Poe that I've noticed. If for nothing else, if I can't really read his work, he's a wonderful fount of vocabulary for any writer that, deserves some reference. So, yeah, there's that. Robert Louis Stevenson. Got a copy of Dracula with a Rubik's Cube. That's actually my brother's. I need to return because I have my own. And a little box with some headphones on top of that. This here, Jewel of the Seven Stars, is a rare book by Bram Stoker about Egyptology. And I haven't been able to find this. I can't remember where I found this book. I think it was at a bookshop in I don't remember where, but it's actually a hell of a find because you just don't see any other of his books around, and that's a very provocative cover. Let me put that back, actually. I regret showing that. But anyway, so there's that. These two books here by Irving Stone, Lust for Life and The Agony and the Ecstasy, these are both, I guess, autobiographical novels. One about Van Gogh and one about Michelangelo, which I'm unsure whether the songs came first or the books did. I cannot tell because these are both titles of songs. And it's very interesting. So, yeah. A few other things. What is this book? This nondescript one. Oh, that's The Inferno by Strindberg. Still need to read that. Modest Proposal by Jonathan Swift is hilarious. I love that essay. Anyone who has not read it yet, I highly suggest you do. It's a masterpiece of satire, and it needs to be read more often. And then there's my DSI. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, along with various other things. And then Josephine Tey is one of my favorite mystery writers. In fact, probably my favorite mystery writer. Because when you read one of her books, you're going to want to read the rest of them. I can recommend The Daughter of Time as her most famous, but another that actually is a little bit better is Brat Farrar, more of kind of a Prince and the Pauper type of story, which is interesting. A Scottish mystery writer around the time of Agatha Christie, but I think maybe a little bit better than Agatha Christie. So yeah, and probably the best part about it is that her inspector is named Alan Grant. That's all I'll say. Let's see. Those are just some notebooks in which I'm drafting some things, and then some more scratch pads. a couple of random books, and then Broken Time by Maggie Thomas, which is the second pseudonym of Emily Davenport, my aunt. More science fiction stuff. And yeah, random things, and then Tolkien. I'm yet to read Tolkien. I'm sure Tolkien is just as good as people are saying. Just haven't found the time to read anything by him, but I have a whole bunch of Tolkien. I want to get a better copy of Lord of the Rings because this is just a movie tie-in edition that I got for cheap. I'd like to get, what the red hardback that looks like what's it called? The Book of Westmarch or something like that. The Red Book of Westmarch. That would be very nice. The Hobbit too. That would be nice to get a different edition of that. And then that's my manuscript for El Engano. I switched over from the black to orange because it didn't quite work out the first go around, and I started this year, and it's going actually better than I ever anticipated. So there's that, along with another bullet journal, and I'm going to go ahead and turn around now. And then we just have a couple different things: Trollope, Tolstoy, Tool, Trump. That's just for novelty purposes. It has nothing to do with my stance on anything. I got that specifically for novelty purposes. Believe you me. And then, oh God, and then we have here. Okay, so this is going to be very cramped because, I don't have that much left to go, and it's very messy here, so I'm going to have to try and do this to where not only am I comfortable, but you can see everything. So hang on just a sec. Okay, so I have a stool that I'm now sitting on, and we are just about near the end here. So we have a bunch of Mark Twains. I obviously love Mark Twain. This book here, Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court. I told a story about that one time. A lady tried to impress me in gym class, saying that she read it because she was trying to come on to me. It didn't work out too well, but nevertheless, I am no longer in search of romance of any kind. I just don't care anymore. And it's best to be celibate. So, anyway, got some field notes. I just have various things in here. I don't want to give too much away, but, just like various notes and such and all that. They're very, very useful, but very expensive. So I don't get them a whole ton, but nevertheless. And those are some screen protectors that are much too small for my phone. So I had them sit around for about a month after I ordered them because, I just didn't get around to affixing them to my phone. But when I finally did, it was too late to return them, and now I'm stuck with them. So who knows? Anyway, then we got The Creature from Black Lagoon, my favorite Universal monster picture. And this book, Disarm Your Limits by Jessica Cox, is a book my therapist lent me, which I haven't read yet, and I need to read. I need to get on that, actually. So yeah. Different things. This one here, Venom House by Arthur W. Upfield, is an Australian mystery about a half-caste who is basically half European, half Aborigine, and he's basically the inspector behind that whole thing, which is interesting. Jules Verne, a bunch of his books there. Yet to read him really intensely because, I had tried reading During the Center of the Earth back in school. I had a rough time with it because basically it's a older, slower, more, no offense, but more boring version of The Lost World. I think Conan Doyle really did a great service to the story with his own version. I think this, it hasn't much that's left to be desired. But anyway, I don't know. Maybe 20,000 Leagues will be better. I'm not sure. And then several other things there. Kalki by Gore Vidal is one of the favorites of Reamsey, which I'm yet to read. And then some editions of Candide, different translations, but that one's a Penguin, so I may keep this one at the end of the day, depending on which translation I like. And then my Vonnegut. I read a lot of Vonnegut back in the day, but I haven't really since. But, Slaughterhouse-Five is one of the most hilarious books ever written, so there you go. My apologies for ending so abruptly. My phone needed a bit of charging, but we're almost done. Trust me. Next to Vonnegut is Edgar Wallace, who's one of my favorite writers to read. I have not read him in years, but the main reason why I was attracted to him initially is because he co-created King Kong with Marion C. Cooper. They had worked on an early version of the story and such, and, I looked into him and found out he was a novelist and had written over 175 books, and that, at one point, most of the population of Britain had at least one of his books in their house, which was interesting, but let's see. I did a review of Terror Keep, which is on the channel. But there's also The Four Just Men, which I think is his most famous. The Lore of the Four Just Men. The Green Rust, which my uncle lent me a long time ago, and I never read. I'll probably have to get around to that here as soon as I can get it back to him. And the Murder Book of J.G. Reader, which is a collection of short stories of this detective. Various things, and some Evil and War. Brideshead Revisited, Vile Bodies, A Handful of Dust, and this book about Catholicism. I read Evil and War's short stories, but not his longer fiction, so that would be interesting to pursue. Let's move down to the final shelf, and I think for this one, I may be able to do all of this from my chair. So, hang on just a sec. Okay, here we are. We're finally here. I thought we could get here. Oh, I'm okay. I never thought we'd reach this point, but no, we're finally here. Those are Evil and War short stories right next to The Loved One. I've read quite a lot of those. Too Much Tolerance is the one piece that stands out in my memory. But I'm sure there are others, and I just dropped something. But anyway, Mary Webb. I'm looking to read her. She was in the first 10 Penguins. She's number 9. And I found 2 other of her books, so we'll see what she's like. A couple random books, and then we get into H.G. Wells. And I have several H.G. Wells books. I don't even know how many I have, but, H.G. Wells obviously is a major influence on me as a writer and a reader. I love him very much. There's that Penguin of War of the Worlds that came with Animal Farm, the first 10. There's a lot of his titles that are very hard to come by, but I did manage to get. Like Beelby, for instance, and Kips, as well as The Sea Lady, which was actually public domain. Sleeper Wakes, that was Seawolf Press, which is one of my favorite presses, and I was almost thinking of doing an H.G. Wells read-along where I would read through all of H.G. Wells' books and review them all for you just to see if all of them were any good. But let me know if you want to see that, because I have nowhere near all of them at all. So we'll see. Oh, and Anne Veronica is there too. These are just two more books that my brother wants me to have just in case he wants to read them. Curious Incident of Dog in the Nighttime and Gone Girl. I may read them at some point, but, they're there. Oh, this book by Wells is pretty neat. Little pamphlet called Crux Ansata, which is an indictment of the Catholic Church. Pretty interesting. Also pretty thin. So, yeah. And then we have several other things. Edith Wharton, Eudora Welty. And then we move into Patrick White, who is the only Australian to have won the Nobel Prize in literature. I read him a long time ago. I've not read him since. I'm sure he's good. I may need to refer back to him. And this here is a Reader's Digest volume, which includes Man-Eaters, or Man-Eater, which is a book about tigers in India. What the hell is it called? The Temple Tiger and More, Man-Eaters of Kumaon, by Jim Corbett, which I've been looking to read. This is an abridgment, but I found it for free outside of Friends of the Library, so I grabbed it. And then that's just a bullet journal right there, and that's just a regular journal. Couple other things, a short history of England, some Walt Whitman. For some reason I have Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm by Kate Douglas Wiggin. I did a review of The Bird's Christmas Carol by her, and I did not think too highly of it. So why I have that, I have no idea. Maybe I'll read it and like it better. I'm not sure. We'll see. Anyway, Once Future King. And then we got Oscar Wilde here, whom I've read his short stories, but not Picture of Dorian Gray. I'm familiar with the story, though, and the allegory behind it, so that's good enough for now. I may read it at some point, but anyway, in his plays. Stoner by John Williams. Not that John Williams, but read a little bit of that. It's pretty good so far. I may come back to it at some point, but anyway. Christianity Among the New Zealanders by William Williams. Just some early history in the country. Pretty interesting book. Old book, very hard to find. And then we got some P.G. Wodehouse. I've not read Wodehouse. I've been meaning to read Wodehouse. In fact, the reason I have this letters collection of Wodehouse is because, my aunt gave it to me because she saw I was buying a lot of Wodehouse just to read them. And she figured, hey, you may as well see his letters too. And, that's my little Wodehouse collection. I know Logan Albright cannot get enough of Wodehouse, but we'll see just how he is. And top of here, okay, I'm going to have to bring the stool back in the equation. On top of here, is a journal from Scribbles That Matter. I've been meaning to investigate this company. I found it at a rummage sale. But they're dotted in line. No, they're dotted journals. Scribbles That Matter, like I said. And yes, I paid $3 for it. But hey, I would have paid like $30. So I'm saving. It's basically 90% off. I think it's 90%. I don't know. I don't know my mathematics. I honestly don't. You know me, people. I'm terrible at maths, honestly. If you want my help in any sort of situation, you'd be hopeless, pretty much. But I'm going to try those out here soon. And then we have some more Zen Art Supplies journal. I'll get into those at another video. Book on New Zealand. and some more things. Virginia Woolf, Richard Wright, Herman Wouk, and the autobiography of a yogi, which I've been meaning to read for the longest time. I just haven't. Another of the First 10 Penguins, William by E.H. Young. This book, The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, which Ahab has been hounding me about wanting to read. You know, he says it's one of his favorites. I'll get to it eventually. Not sure when exactly, but the Thrawn trilogy, aka episodes 7, 8, and 9 of Star Wars, the real episodes 7, 8, and 9 of Star Wars. I've only ever read the first volume, mainly because, well, I lent it to I read it thinking that, you know, my brother and I were going to read it as part of our little, I guess, ill-fated book club, and it never ended up being so, and I lent it to him for the longest time. He never read it, so I was just with these two volumes here. Anyway, that's Heir to the Empire, The Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command I have there. Then finally, we have We by Zamyatin, which is the basis for 1984. I'm yet to read that. Hopefully will do soon. And then finally, we have Emile Zola, which I'm yet to read. And then probably the best thing on this entire shelf, the complete series of Alf, Deluxe Edition, with all but one of the uncut episodes. Apparently there's one missing. It doesn't really matter. I have the German seasons, but I got that for Christmas. Also, here are some more notepads and notebooks, pens, some case for glasses, some earplugs, more notebooks, and Necronomicon, or the best weird tales of H.P. Lovecraft, the volume that started it all. So there you go. That is the whole of my library. I hope you enjoy that. Finally was able to shoot this. It's just that, you know, recently things have been very busy with me. A lot of people have been wondering why I left the channel and haven't really done anything with it for 3 months. I may do a video of that here before the new year, maybe after, I don't know, but things are changing to where I can't necessarily be on here as often as I'd like. Not out of, you know, personal spite, but just really, my life is changing. And, you know, certain things have to go that have stood standing strong for many years. And this may well be one of them. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little tour, that two-part tour. If any of you are interested in myself reading and talking about any of the volumes you happen to see, do let me know which one in particular. If you have any recommendations, also let me know. And we'll be seeing you just sometime. I have no idea when, but just sometime. So that's it. And we'll see you people when we see you. Cheers. One book I actually forgot to mention, A Celebration of My Life, World War II Memories, 1939 to 45, by James Roland Wilson, or Ronald Wilson, is actually the grandfather of my former biology teacher. You know, he had printed, or the father, I can't quite remember. He had printed several editions of this, and, you know, I offered to, you know, I don't know about buy one, but read it. And I haven't read it quite yet, but from what he's said of it, it sounds interesting, from the Royal Winnipeg Rifles. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and edit this all together, and post the first part today, which is Sunday the 5th or 6th of October, 6th of October 2024. It's almost 3 o'clock, so hopefully I'll be able to get both parts up today. I don't know, but nevertheless, I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you whenever, because I don't know exactly when I'm going to get back to this channel, but I thought I may as well do this because plenty of people asked for it, and, uh, I just cleared up some space on my camera. So, there you go. Cheers.